Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I'm returning to you this afternoon time, early afternoon, for the new album review. And it's an album that comes out tomorrow on June 6th, so tonight at midnight, for Turnstile's new record, Never Enough, that I got a chance to listen to for myself, see what I was going to think of this record overall. So I'm going to discuss what I listened to for the 14 tracks, which is a 45-minute record, and let you know my thoughts on Turnstile's Never Enough album. So let's dive into this album review. I think it's their, I presume, fifth or sixth album. I'm not 100% sure, but I haven't been following this band too much due to the fact that I know I listened to their holiday song back in 2022. So it's their fourth album, to be precise, as of looking into this just now. But overall, um, from what I listened to, we'll start with Never Enough, the title track. Great title track. It opens up the record very well with the symphonic melodies and just how it sounds overall with Brendan Yates's vocals from time to time are sounding pretty good. It almost sounds like he's sounding similar to the Police, like Sting or whatever, but I know he's not. It's just that's his style of vocal range, but it does sound pretty good, so it's a 5 out of 5 for Never Enough. I like the outro to it too, where it goes into some drum work too and builds up into something that's going to be the next song, which we're going to talk about the next song in just a second. So 5 out of 5 for Never Enough. Soul is the continuation to Never Enough. It's basically where it does the drumming at the end of the Never Enough track. It comes in with this song for the rest of the way with the drumming. So it's like the part two of Never Enough in a way. But it's in its own way, it's its own song. But it's really good. I really enjoyed this one. My personal favorite track on the record is Soul. So it is a very much a favorable track, and I think people are going to like this when it comes out tonight at midnight. So it's a 5 out of 5. Brendan's screaming, yelling vocals, and his overall singing vocals sound really good. His shouting vocals are pretty strong too. And the guitar work and drum work is really fast paced, and I really enjoyed this about this track. This track was a personal favorite punk rock song. I Care is a really strong track too. In its own way, it did very well for how it sounded execution wise. So it's another 5 out of 5. I can get on board with this. It sounds good with the melody, and just Brendan's singing is pretty strong for sure. So I'm really digging the first half of this record overall. So very strong song, I Care, and it's a 5 out of 5. Dreaming is a kind of a short track, but it is very strong for how it sounds. And with how it sounded overall, but it did very well. I think 2 minutes and 36 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. But overall, I think Brendan's vocals sounded really good in this, and just the execution of this track flowed very well, so 5 out of 5. Light Design is another short track. It's like 2 minutes and 6 seconds, but it did very well with the execution. And overall, Brendan's vocals and his shouting vocals do sound good in this, so it's pretty strong of a track. 5 out of 5. Dole is another great song I can get on board with. I really enjoyed how it sounded and how the effects in the track with the mixing and production sounded pretty strong. So this is another 5 out of 5 too. I really enjoyed this one. I think Brendan's singing vocals are pretty strong, and some of the shouting vocals are pretty good in this too. But this is a record I'm going to have to come back to a few times to see if it's something that's contender for album of the year. But it's a pretty strong record, I'll tell you that much. So 5 out of 5. Sun Shower is a strong track in its own way. I really enjoyed this one. Definitely rocks. Um, I think with how Brendan's singing this track, did very well execution wise, and overall, this was a personal favorite track too as well. But it's not. It's one of the personal favorites along with Soul, but Soul is my personal favorite. Uh, One of the highlights on the record is Soul for sure on this record. But overall, 5 out of 5 for Sun Shower. Look Out for Me is a strong track. It is pretty lengthy. It's like almost 7 minutes of a song. But you're in for some good moments in this track. It does have some good execution with the drumming and guitar work, and just the melody sounds on point. It makes the album flow very well for this 6 minute and 43-second track. And Brendan's singing in it is pretty good, so really dug this. 5 out of 5. Ceiling is probably my least favorite, but it's pretty good. It's just the electronic vocals in this track were a little underwhelming for the minute and 13 seconds, so it wasn't a very long song, but it's the fact of the matter that it executed in a alright way. It's just his electronic vocals when he's singing, it just didn't flow very well. But it's a 4.75 out of 5. It's still a strong track in its own way. Seeing Stars is a good track. I really enjoyed this one too. It does repeat the same chorus another time after it finishes its first cycle of the chorus. It goes into the same chorus again, and then it goes into a different layer in the track, which sounds alright, and then the guitar solo closes out the song along with the final chorus of the track. So it's an alright track, 5 out of 5. Birds is a strong track. I really enjoyed this one. I think Brendan Yates's singing and shouting vocals sound really strong in this. Fast-paced drumming that I can get on board with, and it definitely rocks for sure. 5 out of 5. Slow Dive is actually pretty good for sure. Probably another personal favorite track on this record. I really enjoyed this for how it sounded. They didn't disappoint with this one. They made it sound catchy. They made it sound really good with the mixing and production. And overall, it was a strong track. So thumbs up for this song. 5 out of 5. Time is Happening is a pretty good song in its own way. It closes up, it's the second to last song before we get to the closing track, but it's still good in its own way. So a 4.75 out of 5. I don't know, with how Brendan was singing this song, it just felt a little lacklusting at times, but it wasn't terrible. It still was strong, but in its own way, it did fairly well. So 4.75 out of 5. And then finally, the closing track, Magic Man, closes out this record pretty well. It is mellow of a track, but it does sound interesting for how he's singing it, Brendan is, and just the outro to it's pretty interesting in the closing gap of the song when you hit like 2 minutes and 58 seconds in the track. It just silences the melody, and then you hear nothing but silence afterwards for the rest of the way, and then pretty interesting outro to the record. So overall, 5 out of 5. Overall, production, mixing, and execution wise, I think Turnstile Never Enough is a really good follow up to their last record, Glow. I think that was their last record, Glow On. That's what their last record's name was, Glow On. Sorry, I was saying it wrong by mistake. Yeah, I did not listen to Glow On too much, but I did listen to Holiday off that record. And overall, I think Glow On, I heard some good things about it, but from what I listened to is Turnstile Never Enough. It's a good follow-up to Glow On. I hear Glow On is pretty good, but I gotta go look into their other albums, the other 3 albums, and see what I think of those. but they've only been a band for like 10 years or so. Uh, they are fairly new, fairly, I guess you could say, but they've been around since like early 2010s, like somewhere around 2013 or so. But from what I listened to was Never Enough, I really enjoyed this record. It is a personal favorite record. I can see why critics are praising it because it's that strong of a record, and it holds up very well with the execution. I mean, a few tracks I had some critiques about, like Ceiling and Time is Happening, but other than that, the record did pretty well in its own way. It probably won't be Album of the Year, but it will be on the best albums of 2025 on my list. So if I were to give Turnstile Never Enough a score, I'm feeling a strong 9.5 out of 10. Definitely is a good record. I highly recommend you check this out when it comes out tonight at midnight. It's worthy to be something of an album of the year contender for some people. But for me, it will be in the top 10. I can tell you that much because it was that good of a record. Um, it's a possibility it'll be in my top 10 of the best albums of 2025. But I got to see where I stand with some other albums too for the rest of the year because the year's not over yet. We're not even halfway through the year yet. After this month, we are halfway through. Starting in July, we'll be halfway through 2025. But overall, from what I listened to with Turnstile Never Enough, I highly recommend this album to you guys. It's really worthy of listening to. It's a great record. I enjoyed most of the songs, and majority of the tracks are pretty strong. But there were two songs I had issues with, which was Ceiling and Time is Happening. But other than that, I'm going to close this review out by saying thank you so much for watching the Turnstile Never Enough album review, and I'll see you guys soon in my next review.